So last week, Donald Trump returned to the Capitol as president. Naturally, it was nothing short of a spectacle, bombast, theatrics, and a generous dose of self-congratulation. But what really struck me was his speech, where he resurrected that old chestnut, American Manifest Destiny. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, Manifest Destiny sounds grand and visionary, doesn't it? Until you realize what it actually means. It's essentially an excuse for conquest and domination, neatly packaged in the language of exceptionalism. And Trump, he's all in. This time though, his ambitions have gone interplanetary, that's right. Mars is now the next chapter in America's mythology of expansion. Colonizing a new planet because clearly we've done such a great job of this one. That said, Trump's expansionist dreams didn't begin with Mars. Before aiming for the stars, he floated the idea of buying Greenland, mused about annexing Canada, and regularly invoked the Panama Canal as a symbol of American power. Whether it's land, trade routes, or entire planets, it's always the same story, domination masquerading as progress. But here's the thing about Manifest Destiny. It isn't just some abstract idea. It's a doctrine soaked in blood. It justified the genocide of millions of Native Americans, the theft of their lands, and the obliteration of their cultures. It's violence cloaked as inevitability. And now, Trump is dusting it off and revamping it for a new age. But let's talk about the inauguration itself. Sitting in the front row like emperors surveying their domain were Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. These aren't just tech billionaires, they're architects of modern power. Musk, for example, was worth a mere $2 billion in 2012. Today, $449 billion. Bezos went from 18 billion to 245 billion, and Zuckerberg climbed from a mere 44 billion to 217 billion. Meanwhile, the federal minimum wage in the US has been frozen at $7.25 an hour since 2009. Let that sink in. These fortunes could end global poverty, yet they've been amassed in a world where millions struggle just to survive. It's the divided states of oligarchy where billionaires thrive and everyone else is left scrambling. And Musk, well, he didn't just show up with his billions. He brought along the baggage of his recent Nazi salute. Yes, you heard that correctly. Musk, with a straight face, threw up a Nazi salute. And what happened? Pro-Israel figures rushed to his defense. Why? Because let's be honest, it's not about anti-Semitism for these people, it's about Israel. Musk parrots their narratives and amplifies their propaganda on X. So a Nazi salute? Apparently that's something they can look past. It's funny, isn't it? Not in a ha-ha way, but in a deeply twisted way. It's not just about money though. These billionaires are deeply tied to state violence. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft have provided AI tools to enhance Israel's military capabilities. Meta, Zuckerberg's empire, has systematically silenced Palestinian voices, shutting down their stories before they can be heard. And Musk, he's turned X into a megaphone for Israeli propaganda. These men aren't passive bystanders, they're active participants in the machinery of oppression. And speaking of AI, here's where things take a nosedive into full-blown dystopia. For the first time in human history, artificial intelligence is being unleashed at an enormous scale in warfare, and Gaza has been the testing ground. AI-driven drones, predictive algorithms, advanced surveillance, it's like someone watched Black Mirror and thought, let's make it worse. They'll dress it up as precision, but let's be honest, it's cold, calculated, and utterly inhumane. This is mechanized mass slaughter, quicker, bloodier, and more devastating than anything humanity's blood-soaked history has ever conjured. Now, let's move on to the most chilling part of Trump's speech. Behind him stood the families of Israeli hostages, grieving, heartbroken, their pain put on full display. Trump turned to an Israeli mother and declared, "Had I been in power 3 months ago, your son wouldn't have died. We had a deal since July." Well, that's right. But here's what Trump didn't mention: the 10,000 Palestinians killed since July, the 50,000 slaughtered in the past 15 months. No Palestinian mothers were on that stage, their stories unspoken, their humanity ignored. And this silence, it's no accident. In Trump's universe, Palestinians simply don't exist. Their lives don't matter. Their suffering is invisible. But this erasure isn't unique to Trump. It is systemic. It's baked into the fabric of global power. That Trump is now casually floating the idea of ethnically cleansing Gaza is hardly surprising. And why? To make way for glossy sea view real estate developments. Just imagine luxury beachfront flats perched atop the rubble of a war zone. Charming, isn't it? But let's not kid ourselves. This level of callousness isn't unique to Trump. In a recent interview with MSNBC, Biden admitted he had warned Netanyahu not to carpet bomb Gaza. How compassionate of him. And Netanyahu's chilling response? Well, you did it, referencing the firebombing of Dresden and the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And despite knowing Netanyahu's full intent, Biden still approved the transfer of 50,000 tons of bombs to Israel. 50,000 tons. Just think about what that scale of destruction means for a tiny place as densely populated as Gaza. This isn't just about bombs, though. The machinery of Western complicity is vast. The weapons come from America and Germany. The intelligence comes from Britain. The political cover is crafted in Washington, London and Berlin. Take Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party. He called it legitimate to cut off food, water and fuel to Gaza, legitimate to starve an entire population. Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock went as far as defending the bombing of hospitals where women and children were burned alive. This is what Western power looks like: atrocities rationalized, genocide sanitized, and injustice normalized. And then there's the media. Western outlets do their part by amplifying Israeli narratives and silencing Palestinian voices. The New York Times published fabricated stories about sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas, sourced from a former Israeli soldier masquerading as a journalist. CNN, its staff protested the network's suppression of stories critical of Israel. The BBC, its Middle East coverage is managed by figures with links to Israeli intelligence, as was bravely exposed by British journalist Owen Jones. The result? A distorted reality where Israel is framed as the eternal victim while Palestinians are dehumanized. The truth is, the Palestinian struggle for liberation is the most asymmetric conflict in modern history. On one side, you have Israel, backed by the full might of the West, weapons, intelligence, political cover, AI technology, corporations, media machinery. On the other side, you have Palestinians, isolated, besieged, abandoned. They have no superpower to arm them, no institutions to shield them, no media to tell their stories, and yet they resist. Their very existence is an act of defiance. But here's what gives us hope. People across the world are rising up. In London, Paris and New York, millions have marched for Palestine. Universities have become battlegrounds, with students staging sit-ins and walkouts despite crackdowns. Protests are being criminalized, banners seized, activists arrested, but the defiance remains unbroken. The boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, BDS, is gaining ground, forcing corporations and institutions to sever ties with Israel. And international legal bodies like the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, human rights organizations are investigating Israeli war crimes despite relentless attempts by Western governments to shield their ally. This global resistance isn't just about solidarity. It's vital to the fight for justice. Without it, the colossal power imbalance cannot be redressed. And there are signs of change. In the US and UK, voters are holding politicians accountable. Polls suggest Kamala Harris may have lost up to 20% of Democratic support over Gaza. Many, such as the former US ambassador in Israel, no less, believe Joe Biden may be the last Zionist Democrat president in American history. This isn't just about Palestine. It's about all of us. It's a fight between ordinary people and a powerful global elite. It's a battle between dignity, justice and freedom on one side and supremacy, racism, inequality and colonialism on the other. At its heart lies Palestine, a symbol of resistance and hope. To stand with Palestine is to stand against oppression, to reject imperialism, and to affirm the values of justice and humanity. The fight for Palestine is the fight for all of us, and it's far from over.